Hey guys, welcome back to another World of Warcraft gold making guide. Today we'll be going over all the best gold making methods in patch 10.1.5. These methods have made me millions of gold in profit, and still allowed me to pay for my game time on all of my accounts with gold, as well as treating myself to Hearthstone packs, Diablo 4 purchases, and Overwatch 2 cosmetics, despite the rising token prices. If you'd like to see all of my gold making strats live, don't forget to follow me over on Twitch. The link can be found in the description box down below. The first method I want to cover is with Inscription. Warlock pet customization saw a revamp in 10.1.5, and so did the pet glyphs that you craft with Inscription. The old glyphs are now called grimoires. There are a total of 6 of these, which add pet customization options of the barber. These have been insanely profitable the past month of the patch, as I've been using sallow and rosé pigments, which I got from the ink trader back in November 2020, with the trick that I shared with you guys in an old video. I think I had over 10,000 of each pigment at one point, most of which I turned into these grimoires. You can see over the past 4 weeks I've been selling all 6 grimoires, and have over 1.4 million gold in sales. The grimoires are down to 1.2k gold each, but you can see I was able to sell them for as much as 5k each. If you can source cheap sallow and rosé pigments from either milling legion herbs or using any of the ink trader shuffles, these can be insanely lucrative. The second method is to make use of profession cooldowns and weekly raid lockouts. My preference is to have my ults with alchemy and tailoring on them, like this warlock here. You can run the first wing of LFR each week, and have a chance to get the recipes for the Draconic File Cauldron and the Undulating Spore Cloak. Both recipes are still sought after by many crafters on pretty much every realm. Also with cross-realm trading, you can also trade them to a different realm if you aren't having success selling them on your main realm. Even if you don't get lucky with the recipes, you will also get greens that you can sell in the auction house, as well as the chance at BOEs. Additionally, you can set your tunes up to do Dracothis, Azurweave, and Chronocloth cooldowns each week, whenever you log on to do your first wing of LFR for some additional gold. You can see on this tune I was able to sell off a Spore Cloak recipe for 90k. I actually got pretty lucky on this tune last week, ended up getting the Spore Cloak recipe and the File Cauldron recipe from one run. You can see I sold off a couple of greens as well, for a couple hundred gold each. And then I am doing the Dracothis cooldowns on this tune as well. Pretty good profit on those. The next method I've already covered in a few of my prior videos, but I'll talk about it again. There's a ton of gold to be made with a weekly barter brick quest if you invest in materials ahead of time when prices are low, and shuffle them into the items that people will need for the turn-ins. This week we have the quest for the tailoring and leatherworking mats. I had invested in leather to craft the drums last week, and shuffled them over the weekend to have them ready to sell off at the reset on Tuesday. In addition, I had a bunch of the rank 2 Wildercloth bolts left over from 2 weeks ago when we had the same quest. I was able to keep the crafting costs on these low, as I was buying Wildercloth bolts at 50 silver each, and the Vibrant shards for around 9 gold each. You can see the last 2 weeks, I'm nearing around 2 million gold in sales from these bolts, and I still have around 10,000 to sell off this week. You definitely want to purchase the materials when the quests are not up, and when the prices are low. Make sure to have the ult shuffling optimized by making use of crafting mechanics like multi-craft and resourcefulness to maximize your return. Next, let's talk briefly about Naxxramas and the new items. You'll need to do a lengthy questline to get it unlocked, but it's definitely worthwhile. Nax is another easy lockout you can use each week for a bit of extra gold. The drops off of the bosses can be converted to purchase frost resistance gear recipes to craft. You can also gamble on recipes from the vendor inside of Naxxramas and outside of Lightsoap Chapel. Or you can also gamble for lamented pieces, which people will use to craft their tier 3 sets. All the recipes that aren't the frost res gear are BOE, which means you can either sell them on the auction house or learn them. I ended up getting one of each recipe, gambling most of them, and then buying what I didn't have on other realms and trading them over. I then crafted a bunch of the gear, moved them to the other realms where I don't have the recipes to start selling them to more people. You can see on this realm, I ended up with a little bit over 2.1 million gold in sales. There's like 500,000 worth of Dracos in there as well. So about 1.5 million of this is the new crafted gear. Had some really nice sales, looks like 3 weeks ago. Selling some of the polar resistance, or the polar frost resistance gear at, I think 70k, 66 after the auction house cut. Couple of nice sales on recipes too. Some of the more recent ones are kind of low. Selling Stygian Shield for like 8k. Mirror's Lullaby for 15. But we had a really nice sale on this Ancient Pattern Helm of Lingering Power for 175k. Can get some really nice sales. First couple of cloaks sold for a pretty decent amount too. Sold one for 42, and then a couple days later we sold one for like 66k. That would have been roughly 3 weeks ago. So I think about a week into the new patch. But yeah, really good to get into these. You can see I'm getting sales pretty much every other day. I think whenever I just relist. I haven't really been focused on cancel scanning these too much. But yeah, 2.1 million in this mailbox. Really happy with that. Now that we have cross-realm trading in, you can do some amazing things flipping. Prior to the patch, you were usually limited to flipping an item on the realm where you picked it up, unless you did a character or guild transfer to move the items off. But now you can freely trade the majority of items to any realm and sell them at a profit. I've done a bit of that on this realm. I bought cheap recipes on full pops like Area 52 and Illidan, or mispriced recipes on other realms prior to the patch, and moved them over with the cross-realm trading. I've also made a ton of gold doing everything that I mentioned earlier, like the Draco Thist cooldowns. You can see we sold 11 of those at a pretty decent price 10 days ago. Also with moving Nax items over and selling those on this realm, I've made a pretty decent amount of gold. I think the Shrouds had a crafting cost of around, I think between like 50 and 60k depending on when you purchase the mats. We sold 2 of those so far at over 200k. Probably making 300k profit off of those. Did also buy Skullflame shields on another realm and move those over. I think there were like 50k on one of the RP realms a few weeks back. You can see I'm selling a bunch of recipes as well. Most of these I picked up before the patch on Area 52 and Illidan. A couple hundred gold each on those, and then just move them over to this room to sell. Couple nice sales on the ancient plans here as well. Sold the Blade of Unholy Might recipe for 57k. And then the Face of Doom recipe for around 15. 14.2 after the auction house cut. And we're sitting at 1.3 million in sales in roughly like 18 days. It's about 2.5 weeks of sales. Lastly, let's talk about cooking. I've rarely touched cooking to make gold and power expansions, but it's been insanely lucrative in Dragonflight. As mentioned in my previous video, the Yusa's hearty stews have been insanely profitable for me during the weeks where we have the cooking barter brick quests. In addition, I've been AFK crafting the deviously deviled eggs on a few of my accounts in the background, just while I'm raiding or running keys. You can see that in this mailbox we have over 1.44 million gold in sales, and most of that is attributed to the deviously deviled eggs. You can see quite a few sales. I don't actually know how many there are. Probably at least 100,000 of those that we've sold. Yeah, so close to 1.1 million of that 1.44 million is just from the eggs. It's a small amount of profit per craft, but it does add up when you're crafting I usually do batches of like 10 to 50,000 at a time. You can see we sold a big stack of like 33,000 there a couple days ago. This is roughly 10 days worth of sales. Actually, might be closer to 11 days worth of sales, but definitely worth getting into. I would say probably like 300,000 of that is probably profit, based off of how much I've been spending on mats the past couple of days. That's going to be it for today's video. Thank you all for watching, and a huge thanks to Nish as well for your continued support over on Patreon. Hope you guys all have a great week, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Late.